This is the American Roundtable on Tough TV and Tough TV 38. Hello, I'm Al Spry.
And I'm Bill Strickland.
It's so happy to be here with you. Of course, last week we had our friend Todd Long on. He'll be joining us as well. If you want to find out more about what we do on American Roundtable, check out facebook.com/USA Roundtable. That's facebook.com/USA Roundtable. Well, Bill, we have a full palette of wonderful topics to talk about. Some a little scary, like North Korea. Also, that it's okay to do something recording-wise. We'll tell you a little bit about that as well. What else do we have on tap?
Well, we're going to talk about where chocolate milk actually comes from, Al.
You know what? I guess
that's something we all should know, Al.
Would you say there's a debate? We're going to talk about that debate and what has been figured out. But again, if you want to check out a great radio show, check out Connections 5 nights a week online internationally at connectionsshow.com. This is the American Roundtable. We'll be back in a moment. This is the American Roundtable. Welcome back. We're so happy that you're joining us. Politics is unusual, which is the way we like to do it, on Tough TV and Tough TV 38. Bill Strickland. So happy to have you here as well, my friend. Let's start with North Korea. North Korea is rattling the saber, and it looks like Donald Trump is rattling it right back. What's the latest on that?
Well, you know, you take a look, you got the North Koreans, then you get the Russians. So it's like we definitely have a lot of international news going on. Now, the CIA, the former CIA director, James Woolsey, said that if a North Korean satellite, actually an IBM, could black out the national electric grid and other life-sustaining critical infrastructure for over a year, killing 9 of 10 Americans by starvation or societal collapse.
Well, I don't know. Do you think that this is really something that could happen? They keep talking about this, something to be aware of. They talked about it with terrorists from the Middle East. They're also talking about it from North Korea. What do you think the likelihood of something like that is?
Well, I like the fact that they're actually talking about it, so they know that there's a possibility. And if there's a possibility, then it could happen. You just don't know when somebody's going to get an attitude and push the button. Or maybe they figure it's, like the death by cop scenario where, hey, I'm just going to do it and then force somebody to do something in response.
Now, you got a good point there, Bill. Of course, very, very challenging times. We've been at war, technically, with North Korea since about 1950. So we've been in a continual war. You know, they have the armistice, or what they call the peace. It wasn't a peace treaty, though. It was just a temporary cessation of hostilities. That's why you have that 38th parallel with all these the most heavily militarized border in the world, right?
Yeah, so it looks like Trump looking to China to help out, that just isn't working out too well. It seems like, they're just going to let it play out on its own, and that's unfortunate because we need somebody on our side to stop this guy instead of just going to the United Nations where nobody seems to be doing anything.
Well, I think the Chinese like to have a crazy guy in North Korea, and here's why. It protects their southern border, the Yalu River. As you remember, during the march back in the war, the Korean War, we actually went into China and got repulsed. So I think they have very much a fear that can happen again, and so they really want somebody there that maybe is a little bit crazy, like a Kim Jong-un. But we'll keep an eye on this. This is the American Roundtable on Tough TV and Tough TV 38. We have a lot more coming your way after this.
Welcome back to the American Roundtable. So let's talk about what recently came out in the multi-channel news, a communications magazine, that the court has said it's protected speech to record what goes on with police. If it was in public, you can record it. So there's two sides to the coin. Police, I guess, don't want that to happen because it could be misconstrued. And then people believe that it's their right to record something that's happening out in public.
All I can say is in response is the video don't lie. And so I'm all for recording police. Not to think that I'm of the opinion that police are getting a bad rap right now. Don't get me wrong. I think most police are doing their job. It's a very difficult job. Are there bad apples? Of course. There's bad apples in every profession. However, the police work for the people. So the people have a right to record the police. That's the basic gist of this. Obviously, according to this, the issue is a hot button one given the recent incidences of officer-involved shootings captured on cell phones, other recording devices. But of course, according to the court, the First Amendment protects the act of photographing, filming, or otherwise recording police officers conducting their official duties in public. Not to say that you can go into a police station, go into an interrogation room, and film. No. But if it's in a public area, there's no reason why you can't record that.
Well,
of course,
let's remember that this was a 3-judge panel of the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit overturning a district court finding that recording was not a First Amendment activity because it was not sufficiently expressive. So there's a lot of questions about this and different opinions.
Now they could take this all the way to the Supreme Court, is my understanding, right? Because the Court of Appeals said that it wasn't, or does it die right there?
I'm not sure.
So this may be an issue that's just been solved. I think that then the other side could take it to the Supreme Court. It is possible for the final vote, but I believe if it does go to the Supreme Court, I still think they'll find that recording police is protected speech.
Well, I personally think that it was being there's an event in public that what's the difference between your eyeballs and a camera?
Exactly. It's just another form of your eyeballs. What you're doing is it's better than your eyeballs because the video don't lie, as they say, right?
Yep.
I know it doesn't. I'm just having fun. Everybody writes and goes, "Why did Al Spry say don't?" But that's another thing. So the case involved a Philadelphia Police Department preventing bystanders, Philly, your hometown,
yep,
from recording officers at an anti-fracking protest, attempting to make an arrest, and or retaliating against the video person making the video for the recording they were making. The quote is, "We ask much of our police. They could be our shelter from the storm, yet officers are public officials carrying out public functions." Again, they work for us. The First Amendment requires them to bear bystanders according to their actions. It's vital to promote access that fosters free discussion, benefits not only citizens, but the officers themselves. That's why they're wearing body cams now, officers.
Yeah, so what's the difference?
It actually prevents the officer. Well, what happened here was an individual case in Philly where these officers got mad because they saw people recording them.
Mm-hmm.
And so they said, "No, you can't record us." And they started to try to arrest people. And that's an abridging of the freedoms guaranteed in the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution.
That's what the appeals court said.
Oh, I agree, don't you?
Well, I do. I mean, what's the difference between a person holding a cell phone and a policeman having a camera on his shoulder? I mean, it's still the same thing.
At the same time, I think, like I said, police are getting a raw deal. I think police are doing, like I said, a very hard job. There are mistakes being made, and those mistakes should be prosecuted. Because what we don't want on the street are bad cops. We want good cops. And I will say that a majority of the police, in my opinion, are doing a hard job and doing it very, very well. Your thoughts?
They're under extreme pressure. They can never tell when someone's going to walk up to them and pull the trigger. I mean, that's the world we live in now. It seems to me like we really don't respect the police like we used to.
Well, again, it goes along, and that's a very interesting point, Bill, and I'll close with this. We are not respecting many institutions whatsoever anymore. And that's not the fault of the people per se. I think it's the fault of the institution. So we will continue with more thoughts on the U.S. and all things American here on the American Roundtable. Welcome back to the American Roundtable. So happy to have you here on Tough TV and Tough TV 38. More information about this show is available at facebook.com/USA Roundtable. Have you heard the name Linda Sarsour? Well, we're going to tell you about Linda Sarsour because she's calling for a, quote, jihad, which is the word for holy war amongst Muslim extremists, against the Trump administration. You see, because the left has no real power right now, no real power base, so they're trying to talk loudly and say controversial things so that they can get some media attention. And so that's what's happening right here. Controversial activist Linda Sarsour is calling for a jihad against President Donald Trump and his administration addressing the annual Islamic Society of North America, otherwise known as ISNA. The convention past weekend, Sarsour attacked the Trump administration and called on the Muslim community to unite against the White House. What's the problem with Linda Sarsour using the word jihad in your thoughts?
Well, if you take a look at what the media and the left is presenting is like, there is no problem with the Muslims. It's just radicals at the fringes. But when you have somebody asking the whole Muslim community is calling for a jihad, that's a problem. I mean, how can Christians or Jews be taking a look at Muslims and something like this and not saying, see, we told you so? I mean, this is not good for them to do that. That's like sometimes Trump tweeting, saying stuff, which it doesn't really move his cause forward. This definitely is a problem, especially considering all the people that have been killed lately.
You know, I understand the rhetoric and I understand inflammatory rhetoric that you use at conventions, but I have a problem with that word. That word, jihad, to me spells death to many people. Now, you're calling for a jihad against President Donald Trump. How is that different than wishing for him to, not be here anymore? What would be the difference to you?
To me, there is no difference. You're asking a group of people that are already have an image problem to go after the President of the United States. To me, I'm still waiting for people to say, let's sit down, let's talk about our problems. If we're Democrats, Republicans, if we're Muslims, let's get with the Jews or the Christians. I mean, let's start talking and working our problems out. Is there anybody really trying to work out their problems? I don't see it.
No, we're seeing hard lines being drawn. We're seeing extremism on both sides. I'm not going to say it's just on one side. We're seeing it on both sides. The problem is when you start getting into radical rhetoric being spoken by an activist, Linda Sarsour, who's just trying to make headlines, it sounds like. How do you know someone's not listening to this and then won't take this seriously and plot something against our government or our president? What would stop them? This type of rhetoric needs to be, obviously it's free speech, but people shouldn't be supporting this type of rhetoric. Well, this woman shouldn't be speaking at a huge conference of the Islamic Society of North America.
If there's websites that are provoking ISIS and radical Islamic terrorism, what's the difference between that and what this lady said? And to bring up a point, I actually saw something on the internet within the last couple of weeks that there's an ISIS execution video shows brainwashed children as young as 8 years old, being forced to shoot prisoners in the head. I mean, to me, that is a big problem. And if you have this rhetoric from this activist, that's not making the situation any better. That's feeding into the hostility.
Yeah, I mean, this is obviously very sick. Why are you teaching children to kill people and videoing it? To me, it sounds like all they worship in these ISIS, this ISIS organizations like them, is death, and they think that that's a pretty good idea. Well, I don't really think it's a good idea to kill people and have your kids killing people. And again, ISIS just needs to be done away with. We have to, but I think it has to be done away with in a smart way. You can't kill them all because, you kill one, 10 sprout up. You have to have dialogue instead. This is the American Roundtable. More after this.
This is American Roundtable. So, Al, let's talk about the ongoing gun violence in Chicago. There's been over 1,700 shootings in Chicago since the beginning of the year.
Absolutely horrendous. I don't know what's happening to Chicago. I know it's that toddling town, but it doesn't sound like you can dance with your wife anymore without her getting shot. So what's the story here? We have a situation with gangs. We have a situation with the cops being too afraid of doing their jobs because they think they're going to get excoriated if they make a wrong move. So they basically stepped back. That's what they've done. And they said, we're just going to do the minimum. This is not obviously, I think that this is a terrible attitude to take on the police. I think, however, that the police need to be assured that they can do their jobs without impediment. So it's not an easy answer. But what we're seeing right now is absolutely absurd. It's completely ridiculous to have this gun violence level. People are afraid. And you know what's going to happen to Chicago if you instill fear in people in Chicago? Chicago will turn into Detroit. Your thoughts?
Well, over the 4th of July weekend, there were over 100 shootings. I mean, this is a weekend of celebration.
100 shootings.
And,
insane.
And is it that the shootings are happening because people feel that they're really un-American or disconnected from the American dream? I mean, or is it just gang related?
Much of it is gang related. Much of it is gang related. You have the gangs running the streets. It's not unlike the 1930s with the gangland shootings that were happening with the organized crime with the mob back then. Except now it's Black and Hispanic gangs. It's not really Italian gangs anymore, but we're seeing the same kind of gangland violence that we did 80 years ago. And people are up in arms, and you're going to see what happened. What happened 80 years ago? How did they clamp it down? You know, there was a massive police presence. You know, the people, there will be a time in Chicago where the people will have enough. You have a very weak mayor in there, Rahm Emanuel. Remember him? He was the chief of staff for Obama. Terrible mayor. One of the worst mayors that Chicago has ever had. Agree or disagree?
Well, I like to know what he's doing. This shooting situation has been going on for years, and Manuel was under Obama's protective umbrella. Now you see Trump actually sending in federal agents. They sent in at least 20, but it's going to take more than that because even though the numbers are starting to decrease, they're still not to zero or going in a serious downward direction.
Yes, according to Trump, when the president tweeting about this, crime and killings, is the quote, crime and killings in Chicago have reached such epidemic proportions that I am sending in federal help. 1,714 shootings in Chicago this year, like you had said earlier. And there's another quote here. We'll have an impact in reducing shootings in Chicago. This is according to Jeff Sessions, Attorney General, while saying the police are demoralized. City policies are not working. I could say, honestly, I agree that police are demoralized. They feel like their mayor and the local council and city government is not backing them. Chicago's always been a rough and tumble town. You know, that used to be the West way back. And but the quote is here, obviously I agree, murders are way too high. You know, and of course Trump tweeting again, if Chicago doesn't fix the horrible carnage going on, then I'll set in the Fed. So is he actually doing that? This is what I understand. The 20 additional agents with the U.S. Bureau of ATF is going in?
Yeah, and keep in mind now the 17-14 shootings were on June 30th. So we've already had another 100 over the 4th of July weekend. So we're coming close to 2,000 shootings in what, a little over half a year.
I'm going to say this, and I think the police need to do their jobs. Do your job, police in Chicago. Stop this violence. That's why we hire you. That's why we hire the police.
Look, don't put it all off on the police.
A lot of it is on the police because the police have the ultimate responsibility to protect people.
They take their orders. They take their orders from the mayor's office. So I mean, they got to have support from the mayor and the city government.
But until the mayor gets his act in gear, they need to protect the public. That's my thought on it. And let's see what happens. Let the carnage stop in Chicago. More final thoughts on brown cows in a moment. Welcome back to the American Roundtable. I'm Al Spry, and of course, this is the wonderful Bill Strickler, who has some really interesting news about cows and milk.
Yeah, so it amazes me sometimes when the general public, they vote one way or another, or they make statements about certain political issues. And then I see this study that 7%, Al, believe that chocolate milk comes from brown cows. That's like having the entire state of Pennsylvania believes that chocolate milk comes from brown cows.
Well, yeah, it works out to about 16.4 million people. So basically, the logic is this. Correct me if I'm wrong. So the white milk comes from the white cows, the regular milk,
Yeah.
and the chocolate milk comes from the brown cows.
That's what people think.
So they don't understand how chocolate milk is made.
No.
Where it's the word chocolate milk, you take chocolate and you add it to milk, and then you get chocolate milk. So they think it comes right out of the cow's udder.
Yeah.
Already chocolatey.
Right out of the
with
spout.
full chocolate goodness.
Yep.
Why do you think that is, Bill?
Well, is it because we have poor parenting at people's homes, or we have the schools aren't doing their job, or
they're pushing people through, you know that.
Or is it because the advertising on television, it's so great, and they have cartoon cows, and then you have chocolate milk?
But you're not supposed to believe what you see on television. It's, except for American Roundtable, of course, but that goes without saying.
People aren't growing out of that, Al. And there's other things, like orange juice is supposedly people's favorite fruit. Orange juice.
Not oranges,
No.
but orange juice.
Right.
So we have orange juice being a fruit, and we have brown cows making chocolate milk. USDA says orange juice is the most popular fruit in America, and processed potatoes in the form of French fries and potato chips rank among the top vegetables. Here's a quote: "Indifference about the origins and production of foods became a norm of urban culture, laying the groundwork for modern food sensibility that would spread all across America in the decades that followed." So basically, because they're not tied to the farms anymore and getting food from the source, they become so desensitized to where it all comes from. They just go, "There's a bottle of milk and it's brown, and I don't care where it comes from." That's a basic gist of it. Well, there you go, folks. Brown cows, chocolate milk, so much more in store. And I'm going to have a chocolate milk after this show. This is Al Spry.
Bill Strickler.
Remember to keep it real.
And keep it tough.